If you're currently farming and you're looking for an edge, this video is going to have 3 tips from farmer Conor Crickmore of Neversink Farm on how you can improve your farming operations and make your farm more profitable. Stay tuned for those 3 tips coming up in this one. One of the more interesting farms out there in the market gardening space right now is Conor Crickmore's Neversink Farm in Claryville in New York. At Neversink, Conor's farming on around 1.5 acres of production space, and he's generating over $300,000 in gross revenue per year. He's doing some amazing things, and he's doing them because of the way that he farms and because of the way he approaches the farm business. It's very strategic, it's very systematic. It's not winging it or one unique item that he sells off of his farm that's generating these big returns. It's a whole bunch of little things that he does on the process side that really pay off and help for his farm. The cool thing about a lot of things that he's doing at his farm, they're not necessarily tools or things you have to buy. They're approaches, they're strategies. Think of them as base principles. And that's where this whole idea of doing this video came about. All 3 of the tips that you're going to hear about in this video came out of the most recent interview that I did with Conor Crickmore for the podcast. That interview is titled Base Principles Which Make Neversink Farm Successful. You can view that podcast right here on YouTube or in the normal podcast feed that I do. With that, let's get into it with tip number 1. There's always going to be something to do on the farm. This is one danger of really farming or any business out there. I know this is an entrepreneur. I know this is a dad. There's always something else you can do, whether it's a 24-hour day or a 100-hour day. If you're busy, you're going to feel all 24 or all 100 hours if you give yourself the chance. The importance here is to apply constraint. Focus on the things that matter. Know when to say when. Know when to shut it off. Don't forget why you did this in the first place. If you have a family, a partner, a spouse, other things you enjoy in life, don't leave those behind to work the 100-hour weeks every single week of the year. Odds are, if you think about everything that you're doing on a farm over the course of a 100-hour week, some of that stuff doesn't have to be done. And some of that stuff didn't have to be done when you did it. So you really got to be strategic about your approach. JM has talked about this. Apply constraint. If you have less hours to work, if you give yourself less hours to work and you force yourself to try and get everything done in that amount of time, it makes you really cut through the fat, lean out your operation, and focus on the things that really matter. As Conor said, when you're on a farm, there's always something to do. Regardless of how long the day is, don't fall into that trap. Know when to say when, know what to do, and it'll make your life a lot less stressful. And I'm willing to bet that most of the other people in your life will like you a lot better if you apply some constraint in the process. Tip number 2 from Conor. If weeds are out of control, you're too big. I like that point. It's subtle, but it makes a lot of sense and it's very powerful. Think about that from a macro standpoint. If you have a 1.5 acre farm and it's covered in weeds, what happened there? Either you didn't deal with it, you didn't have a system in place to deal with it, or you tried to deal with it, but it was just too much. It's probably one of those things that happened because the weeds are going to land in the field, the seeds might already be there, they're going to grow regardless of whether you touch them or you don't touch them. They're trying to reproduce. You have to break that cycle, and as Conor would say, kill all the weeds as fast as you can. If your weeds are out of control on a big land base and you're not able to control them due to one of these reasons, then you have to scale down. If it's too hard to manage weeds on 1.5 acres with the amount of labor that you have, your labor and other people's, then the only solution to that is to scale back to a land base where that labor can manage the weeds effectively. And you just keep compressing the land down until you can manage it really well. This makes a lot of sense, but a lot of people don't do it. They want to go big. They think they need to go big to get all the production they need, but that could be fixed by maybe just growing different types of crops or selling to different types of markets. The killer here is if you go big trying to grow all these crops and you get all these weeds, you can't keep up with them. It creates a lot of stress, it creates a lot of time, it ruins the final product, it might make harvesting harder, carrot beds could become a complete mess, and the weed cycle just perpetuates. If your weeds are out of control, you're too big. You gotta fix it some way. That means either throwing more labor at it to match your size, or scaling your size back down to match your labor. The beauty of this, if you focus on a lot of these weeds early and stay on them, the weed curve should decline over time, and into the future, you can probably grow a little bit bigger and bigger over time because certain areas have weeds under control, and you can focus more labor on the new areas without having to add labor. Weeds are a huge killer. Ask any market gardener out there and they will say that. If weeds get out of control, it's a nightmare. Stay on top of them, stay on top of them, stay on top of them. If you can't, scale back. They're too big. Tip number 3 from Conor Crickmore. Remove inefficiencies, remove bottlenecks, and create simple processes. This is huge. Just because you learn to do something a certain way, or just because you've always done something a certain way, doesn't mean it's the best way, or the most efficient way, or the most effective way, or the most profitable way. One thing that's made Conor really successful over the years is removing bottlenecks, creating efficiencies, simplifying things. That means looking at every process that he does, and he asks himself, do I have to do this? Should I continue doing it this way? Are there steps in here which I can remove? Are there tools in here which I can remove? One example of this is he writes down task tickets for every single employee on the farm. So when they do a job, he simply hands them a laminated sheet with everything that they need to do on it. He laminates it because over time he'll write with permanent marker over that and make changes on it and continue to improve that sheet over and over. The improvements make that task easier to follow, they make it better, they make it simpler for an employee to follow. These are huge. They don't cost you anything on your farm to do these things. If you have labor, this is critical. One thing that's came up a lot in terms of farmers I've talked to lately is simplifying tasks down to something that's really basic that anybody can understand. Why is that important? Well, if you have labor, if you ever need backup labor, you want to be able to teach somebody how you do something in a very simple and understandable way that doesn't leave room for interpretation. You want to be able to hand that task off so they can pick it up and do it. If you have a really complex task, or you do something in a way that only you know how it's done, that is a very fragile position to be in. It's a costly position to be in. If you ever get hurt, want to go on vacation, you're on another side of the farm and you need somebody else to do something, they're not going to be able to do it if it's too complex, so simplify it down. Also for your own efforts, remove redundancy, remove these bottlenecks. Let your money go further by removing these bottlenecks. Don't waste money by pushing it into bottlenecks. Don't waste money by spending it on inefficient processes. You only have so much energy. You're only going to have so much time to give in the heat of the farm season. The less time you can spend and get the same amount of work done, the better. That's not always going to be easy to arrive at that point, but the only way you're going to get there is by sitting down and actually looking at your processes. One key book I think that would really help you to do this is Ben Hartman's book, The Lean Farm. It's an absolutely great book. Link to Ben's book below. Ben's book, The Lean Farm, is based upon Toyota's lean system of just removing and rooting out waste. I think a lot of the stuff that Conor does is very similar to what Ben does. Ben has a book out there. You can learn more about it that way, but you can follow in Conor's example and look for these things. They are huge. They don't just apply to any business. They don't just apply to business. They apply to life. The key, though, to doing all that is taking some time to review everything you do, to analyze it, and ask, is there a better way? Maybe that's through your eyes, maybe that's through another set of eyes. Think about it. It will change your life. It will change your farm. Those are 3 tips from Conor Crickmore from the most recent interview that I did with Conor. Link to that interview below. You can also view that interview right here on YouTube. If you want to learn more from Conor, Conor just released a brand new online course geared at profitable market farming. That course is available at a link below. It has 200+ lessons that focus on everything like removing bottlenecks, creating efficiencies, controlling weeds, managing the time you have on your farm so you can enjoy the rest of life. A lot of the reasons Conor does what he does on his farm now are because he has 2 kids and he wanted to be able to put some money aside for those kids for the future, and he also wanted to be able to spend some time off the farm or on the farm not working and enjoying the kids. Don't forget why you did it in the first place. Use the resources that people like Conor have out there to try and get there. If you do this all and all you're doing is working all the time, that's not good. Once again, to learn more from Conor in his online course, visit the link below to that. I'm really excited to see that course come out. I think it's going to be great, jam-packed full of information. A lot of that I think can help your farm today on day one. That's all for this one. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.